Only if you want to.
No, I don't know that these guys are ready for that kind of a Friday.
I don't know. Brees is saying no. Liz is laughing.
Saying, yeah. Julia Rose, she's laughing. I mean,
Yeah, people on the second page of our screen, they don't know what's going on. Oh,
yeah,
Diane's laughing.
you
Okay,
know,
they're laughing. I think they want it.
oh,
But
well,
Kathy Green says yes.
Kathy Green. Kathy
Yeah.
Green always it's the Colorado air. That's what's
And she is an instigator. All
yeah.
the norms have flown out the door. Amy is going to show us something we've never seen before.
Kristin, should I do that?
I think you should do it.
All right. Kip,
She's
should
the
I do
voice
it?
of reason.
Sure. Do it. I just
I'll
want to
let people in.
Just want to show
and then
you.
we'll play the theme song and we can dance, okay?
It's a lot of things I'm going to have to do at once, but I just wanted to show you that sometimes when you wear botanical colors, is it weld? Yes, weld is not.
I think it's weld, yeah.
Sometimes.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it makes you want to take it all off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's the kind of week we've had. Right. Right.
The censors are going to be after us.
Yeah, it's we're doing striptease now on Friday.
No,
Great.
this is like, what is it called? Body shape pride.
It's called I'm Proud of My Body Friday.
Right.
You're all expected to show your body in some way like that with
no
lipstick.
way.
Yeah. Not happening.
All
Not
right.
happening.
We got a full house here.
And we got a theme song.
Oh, we got a theme song. Okay,
hello.
You're in charge.
Good. How are you? All right, I'm letting them in.
Okay.
Oh. Well, it's the end of the week. Now, where you been? Well, now it's Feedback Friday, so come on in. Come sit down and stare at the screen. We got a presenter that you never seen. We're Feedback Friday, we're on the loose. We'll be the train, you be the caboose. It's Feedback Friday with Kathy and Amy. Mashed potatoes and the gravy. It's Feedback Friday all day long. Feedback, feedback, Feedback Friday.
Good morning, everyone. It's 9:04 and we've already had a striptease and a theme song. It's going to be one of those weeks. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you were wise, you didn't watch that debate last night and only saw the highlights, or didn't even do that. But
oh my God, I muted you guys. I couldn't find you. Sorry.
I'm muted.
I'm sorry.
Well, we heard the theme song just fine.
Great. I'm gonna totally shut up now and go to a quiet place. Have fun.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. I know that took a lot out of you. All right. Well, welcome to Feedback Friday number 29. This is our 29th episode. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. That's just both really exhilarating and super depressing, but welcome everyone. I'm so glad we have this platform to at least connect with each other every Friday and just kind of get to see some friendly faces. All right, you all know who I am, Kathy Hattori, president of Botanical Colors, and along with Amy Dufault, who is both an exotic dancer and our director of sustainability and social media. We are here. Oh, I made you laugh, Lorraine. We are here to bring you some of our favorite growers, dyers, scholars, researchers, artists, activists, and anybody who's interested in natural color making and all sorts of things that we're interested in. So today, for Feedback Friday, we have Kristin Arzt from Scrambles Quilts. I met Kristin at Haystack in just last year, right? But it seems like we've been friends for a long time. And she was a lovely addition to our class. We did a bunch of work with pigments, and Kristin just took the lead on that, and we probably made 50 different colors over the course of our class, and it was really exciting and fun to see what people were doing with them. Kristin is the Textiles Department Head at the Crucible, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to making arts education accessible to local youth and surrounding community in Oakland, California. She's also, of course, as I just said, a great friend of ours, and we're very, very happy to have her joining us today. Before we start, of course, I want to say thank you. Thank you for previewing all of these crazy ideas that come into our head. Like, should we do a dance? Should we do a song? Are you gonna, what do you want to, we're gonna have to learn a magic trick, obviously, Amy, like juggling or pulling a quarter out of your ear, something. We're gonna have to learn. Oh,
Right,
she
something.
said, yeah, something. All right. For putting up with us and for all of your amazing support. Really happy that we're able to keep going because you guys are helping us keep going. Amy's going to be our moderator for the chat on this call, and so we'll open up the chat after Kristin's presentation, and you can ask her all the 25,000 questions you're going to have about Clayface Resist and all these other things that she's made, amazing things that she's going to be doing. We're recording this call, and the recording will be made available to you later on, either this weekend or Monday, along with any of the reference information that you had asked that we found links to or sources for. So that's kind of it for the intro. Kristin, I'm going to turn it over to you and have at it. Thank you so much, and welcome, Kristin.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Amy. I'm so excited to be here, and it's so good to see all of you and some familiar faces. And thank you so much for having me, and just for having this as a resource and getting us through 29 weeks of whatever is going on, and for offering it for free too, and just making it accessible to everybody. I think it's been an amazing project that you guys are graciously sharing with all of us. So, hi everybody, I'm Kristin Arzt, and I'm based in Oakland, California. I'm a natural dyer, teacher, Textiles Department Head at the Crucible, like Kathy said. And I'm gonna share my screen and show you guys my natural dye kind of journey for the first little half of it. And then the second half, I'm gonna dive into Clayface Resist and tell you all about all of the crazy things I've done with that. And I'm excited to hear about all your questions. I will start with this very cool animation that my partner Ruben made for me. So I'm based in Oakland, California now. I've been here for the last 9 years. And I grew up on a farm in Western Maryland with my grandparents. And this is my grandma on the right here. That picture was taken, I think, in 1969 of her. And I include her because she has been an incredible inspiration for me in regard to textiles and plants. And she taught me how to sew, and is just like a garden encyclopedia and huge wealth of knowledge and inspiration. And on the right there is my favorite walk at the farm down to the river, and that's Joe Pieweed, that's my Dougie, and he's my favorite foraging partner. And this is just one of the little experiments that I've done on the farm. And I share this with you just because it's a lesson, or the farm has provided me a lot of lessons in utilizing my immediate natural resources. So this is an Osage tree that I dragged out of a ditch with my mom. It was a branch that was fallen. We hooked it up to the back of her truck and just chopped it up with a chainsaw all day. And then when you dye with Osage, I think a lot of you are probably familiar with the tree itself, but you dye with the sawdust to get that beautiful color of yellow, mustard, kind of orange on the right there. And I just learned from Kathy that the fruit, which is this crazy brain looking thing, is really high in antioxidants. And I live in Oakland, California, like I said, and I've lived in the same house for about 9 years. So I've kind of set down some roots here, literally, with my garden. And here I have my the trifecta of my natural dye plants: weld on the left for yellow, madder in the middle for red, and Japanese indigo. Those are the seeds, or the flowers, because it's going to seed now, on the right there. And we have basically filled every little bit of our backyard with as many plants as we possibly could. So we've got some other stuff too. These are my favorites. And I am the Textiles Department Head at the Crucible, like I told you all. And we do a lot of work with industrial arts there. So it's really well known for blacksmithing, welding, foundry, glass blowing, and these sorts of like fiery arts. But 2 or 3 years ago, I started the natural dye program there in the Textiles Department. So these are two best friends. Their names are Ina and Ava, and they came to one of our community indigo dips that we had last year. And it's an amazing community to be a part of. So we'll share some links to them when we share the recording. And I wanted to share this little image with you all. This was my first quilting class that I started taking, I think 7 years ago. And Patricia Bruvy was my teacher in this class. It was a free offering, and she's since retired, which go Patty. But she's the one who introduced me to natural dyes and quilting. And it was a free class at City College of San Francisco. And we would just, like, the same group of people would take it year after year. So we built this sweet little community in that class. And this is the first naturally dyed quilt that I made with fabric scraps from my first ever indigo dips, and some scraps from Guatemalan weepil and Western African indigo. And so I kind of continued on this dye journey, and love to travel to learn, like I know a lot of you all do too. And so I got to visit, this is Lenore Gonzalez, and she runs and operates Diksha Rugs, an organic farm, which is in Teotitlan del Valle in Oaxaca. And here she is introducing me to cochineal. And on the right there, we're gathering the fresh cochineal from their little cow pasture that they had. And they're a Zapotec family and couldn't be more welcoming and sweet and kind, and just so fun to spend time with them and to learn from them. We were with her husband, Mario, and their son, Celestino. And we'll share a link to their farm too, because I'm not sure if they're open now, but you can go and do lessons with them and stay with them. And we just had a beautiful time together. And I continued to travel to North Carolina to learn. So this is at Penland School of Crafts, which is a nonprofit arts, huge organization in terms of the classes and the offerings and the studio spaces that they have. And I learned from Kim Eichler Mesmer when I was there. That's her on the right, and she's introducing me to Clayface Resist in this picture. And she's an amazing teacher, quilter, natural dyer, and she teaches textiles at the Kansas City Art Institute. And it was a natural dyeing and quilting class, so we got to make our own quilts. And on the left here, these are her samples that she first showed us. And this is the quilt that I made while I was there. It was like I think a 2.5 week long class. And Kim showed us so many different techniques with natural dyes that I'm not really going to get into, but she showed us Clayface Resist also on top of all these other things. And I just became totally obsessed with it. And so on the left here, and I'll get into this when we talk more about clay, but this was all painted. And they're just little scraps, like sample scraps that I was playing with. And on the right, this was screen printed with the clay. And this is just like Penland in a picture, basically, just beautiful grassy knoll. If you've been, you know. And when I was at that class with Kim, Catherine Ellis came as a guest teacher one day. So she came, completely blew our minds just for a day. And these are her indigo samples. And if you don't know Catherine Ellis, she is the co-author of the book, The Art and Science of Natural Dyes, with Joy Boutrub, who's kind of like her partner in crime. And Catherine is like an incredible wealth of knowledge and a weaver and a teacher based in North Carolina. And this was at Penland when we were all together. We had a surprise birthday party for her. She's being surprised. And this is Joy on the right. So Joy is, like I mentioned, her partner in crime, and she's a Danish chemist and textile engineer. And while I was with them, we learned a ton of different techniques, and including Clayface Resist, which I'll talk to you all about too. This was just learning direct application of indigo. And my main project while I was there was over dyeing my grandmother's clothes. She had fabulous style, and this is a linen shirt and most of them were just white or over dyed from like a soft pink to a purple or something like that. So this was weld with direct application of indigo, and I'm wearing her other shirt, Matter and Indigo. And then after I studied with Catherine and Joy at Penland, I traveled to Haystack Mountain School of Crafts with Kathy Hattori, and also where I met Amy Dufault, and we had just an amazing time together. Every single day we chose a different kind of color of the rainbow to explore. So day 1 was yellow and day 2 was pink. And so we were left with, like Kathy said earlier, probably 50 different dye pots that we just didn't want to part with. So we ended up making lake pigments all night long. Like we would dye all day, and I think I just made tons of lake pigments every night. And it was a really, really sweet class. We all just like worked together, and there was such a beautiful community vibe with everybody that was in that class together. So I feel like this picture kind of sums it up, just relaxing and painting on the deck together with our lake pigments. I'm actually teaching a lake pigment making online class tomorrow, so I will give you guys a discount code. And this is a quilt that we all made together for Kathy as a thank you. These are all just the samples that we each created in class. We all contributed a little block and a little something there. And now, like I said, I'm in Oakland, and I teach online classes, and I actually taught an in-person class last week at the Crucible, and it was like a dream come true. But I've also really loved teaching online and expanding community and getting to know so many of you all through that. So there have been blessings through it all. And this shirt in particular, I just was like, I'm going to do all my favorite methods on this shirt. So I painted it with clay paste where that circle is. So everywhere that you apply the clay paste, it actually repels the indigo dye. And then dyed it in indigo, and then bundle dyed it. And then the text on the back, I used like a squeeze bottle. It looks like a kind of like a mayonnaise bottle or a condiment bottle, I should say. So Clayface Resist is really fascinating because it only actually works with indigo dye because for a few reasons. Indigo is, like I think some of us know, it's an alkaline environment, so the pH is pretty high. It's usually around pH 11, 10 or 11. And I'll talk about the ingredients that are in clay. So magnesium sulfate is what actually repels the indigo in the alkaline environment. So the clay doesn't break down when it's in the indigo vat. And it also works well in indigo and doesn't work with other dyes because other dyes are usually acidic and they're also usually hot. So indigo can be used cold. And so that's another reason why this works really well with indigo dye. And the recipe that I use, and I think is kind of widely used in the modern times, is a 1-2-3 recipe that was developed by Michelle Garcia. So it's 1 part magnesium sulfate, 2 parts gum arabic, and 3 parts clay. And I use half, 50-50 bentonite and kaolin clay. And I sell a kit on my site, but if you want to buy these like ingredients in bulk, if you want to make a lot of clay, you can get Epsom salts. I usually just get them at the drugstore. And gum arabic, you can get at Mountain Rose Herbs, and I think at other craft craft supply stores, and the clay too for Mountain Rose Herbs. And this is like a super speed version of mixing the clay, but basically you just add hot water. So I'm just first dissolving the magnesium sulfate in warm water, and that's just from my tea kettle. And then I add in the gum arabic, and I give it a really good mix. It can get kind of chunky. So I'm going to hit it with the mixer, and then I'm going to add the clay and probably hit it with the mixer again. And you could also use an immersion blender to mix it. If you don't have, a mixer or an immersion blender, you could just use a whisk and kind of do it slowly over the course of 30 minutes or so to give the gum a chance to dissolve. And what you're left with and what you ideally want to have is like a thin pancake batter, or almost like a syrup. And when the time comes for you to dye your cloth in the indigo vat, well, I'll talk to you first about application. I really like painting with it because it's kind of organic and it gives you a little bit of freedom. So what I do is I paint the cloth on dry fabric. So this is just like a cotton shirt that I dyed. So I paint the clay onto dry fabric, not onto wet fabric, and then I let it dry completely. You can do that in the sun or under a blow dryer or something like that. And then when you go to dip it in the indigo, you actually want to dip it dry. So instead of pre-wetting your fabric like you usually would when you dip in indigo, you are going to not let it touch water because that will make the clay paste break down. And you're just going to put your dry fiber into the indigo vat to dye it. And there are, pros and cons to this. What I kind of like to do is strategically wet my fabric around the clay before I put it in the indigo, because if you've dyed dry fiber, it doesn't really take the indigo as well, especially the shirt was really, really thick. So what I did is I filled a 5-gallon bucket up with water and then kind of held the clay paste over the bucket to saturate the back of it in water so I could get a more even dye. And then I did a little test in terms of timing. So I noticed that the clay actually does break down over time while it's in the vat. So eventually up to maybe 10 minutes, the clay is going to start to break down. And then I noticed 2 minutes, especially since my fiber's dry, the contrast isn't as strong. So I kind of found the sweet spot at 5 minutes. So this was my favorite one. And this is dyed in a fructose calcium hydroxide indigo vat. And I'm showing you guys this picture again to show you the different values that you can create with this method. So these were all painted and these were all screen printed. And I'm going to walk you through how you can get different values with Clayface Resist. And this comes in handy if you want to do some shading, like when I was at Penland with Kim. One of the other students in my class made this really beautiful mountain range, for example, and every mountain peak was like a different value in shade of indigo. And I just thought that was so beautiful. So basically, I'll run you through how you do that. It takes probably a day of work because you have to wait for stuff to dry. But you lay down this is painted, so you paint down one little area of indigo, clay paste, not indigo, on dry fiber, let it dry, dip it in the indigo, take it out of the vat, and then wash it all off so there's no clay left on your cloth, and then repeat after it's dry. And so eventually what you are left with is this on the right here. And so you get 5 different values if you want to do 5 different dips, basically. Let's see, what did I have here? Oh, so this is just to show the process of screen printing with clay paste. And I really like super simple shapes, so that's mostly what I work with. And to make this screen, I just cut out craft paper and put it on an unexposed screen to get that circle shape. But if you're a screen printer and you want to work with screens that have been exposed with photo emulsion, it also works really well with those too. So that's what it looks like after it's been dyed and washed and everything. And then when it comes time to wash your Clayface Resist, I like to do it outside. If you have outdoor space, it works great to feed the plants and to save water. The magnesium in it actually feeds your plants. So this is my Japanese indigo bed. And if you don't have outdoor space, the reason why you want to wash it outside and not in your sink at home is because the clay will actually clog up your drain. But if you don't have outdoor space, what you could do is just take like a 5-gallon bucket or a big bowl and fill it with warm water and then just kind of like work out the clay. That's what I would suggest. And then feed your house plants with it or dump it in the street, or, you know, if you have a small yard, in a small yard. I'm showing you this slide. So this is the washout sink that Penland has in their textile studio. And it has this like super advanced filtration system and a pressure washer basically. And the kind of reason they would not let us wash our clay in the sinks there, the plumbing was old, but also because it would mess up their drains. So this has like a very fancy filtration system on it. And I think other ceramic studios have a similar filtration system because they're working with clay in the plumbing as well. And this is just a really big project I'm working on right now. And I'm just painting with the clay, and it's just a single layer of clay. I did another experiment based on how many, what difference do many layers of clay make? And I found that from 1 to 5 layers of clay, it didn't make a difference in the amount that it was able to stand up in the indigo vat. I would say the most important thing for a strong resist is time in the indigo vat and making sure it dries between dips. So the clay has to dry between every dip. And so this is me. This is my backyard. And this is my 50-gallon indigo vat right here. And I actually managed to fit this whole thing in there with the clay. Like I kind of held it up from the center. So the clay in the middle actually wasn't being dyed, but the outsides of the cloth were. And my 50-gallon vat is just a fructose lime vat. And I just washed it out this morning so I could show you all. So that's what it looks like. I think it's 6 by 9 feet. And these are all where the little clothespins were. And I've gotten the question before, what kind of vats does clay paste work well in? And so I've done ran some experiments. So it works really well in a fructose calcium hydroxide or lime vat. It works well in a ferrous lime vat. It also works in a thiox vat. Those are the ones that I've tested with success. This is a vat that was mixed with lye, not lime. And this was when I was at Penland with Catherine and Joy. And we found that the lye was actually too harsh and it didn't really repel the indigo. In some cases, it actually attracted the indigo, which was really interesting. And another type of vat that doesn't work as well with this, that I don't have pictures of, is a henna vat. I mean, what your definition of as works well is subjective also. Like I think the shading is cool, but what I mean is like a clear contrasted resist. And what we found with the henna vat is that the magnesium in the clay paste actually acted as a metallic mordant and attracted the yellows and the flavonoids that was in the henna dye. So we were left with this almost like yellow resist wherever the clay paste was applied. And I did a fun little experiment based on our conversation that we had, Kathy, about guar gum. And if you can use guar as a replacement thickener instead of gum arabic. And guar is a legume. It comes from a legume. And it is a lot, I guess, it's a lot gummier than gum arabic. And so what I found when I was mixing it is I got this like very kind of chunky paste when I mixed with it. So if you are going to work with guar gum, I would use very, very small amounts, like per 10 grams of magnesium sulfate, maybe half a gram of guar gum instead of gum arabic. But you don't really get a smooth resist out of it. It worked better than I thought it was going to. But I have this picture in the bottom right to show you all that it didn't really dissolve properly. It just kind of came out chunky. So I painted this and I kind of like tried to press it down with my fingers too, to finger paint with it, just to see if I could get it to dissolve more evenly or dry more evenly. But it's a fun experiment. So if you are working with this at home and you're not super picky about how smooth or clean your resist lines are, guar gum works, but maybe not in the way that as strong as gum arabic would work. And I have a kit on my site, and I can share the link with that for you all too. It's working with 10 grams of magnesium sulfate and up. And there's a typo on this page. And I also have a pre-recorded online class for natural indigo and Clayface Resist. So I'll give you all a discount code to that too, if you want to check it out. And here's some other quilts that I've worked with. I'm very drawn to the circle shapes. It's like, for me, when I first started working with circles, they represented like protection and boundaries. And there's also some spiritual aspects of it that, on a personal level, I'm drawn to them because of that. And so everywhere that I painted the Clayface Resist on these two quilts is more or less white. I resisted the indigo. And this is my nephew, Henry. And he's sporting a very fashionable Clayface Resist bib. And this is his baby blanket that I just made for him. And that's my presentation for you all. Thanks for listening. I'm excited.
Thank you, Kristin. That was really beautiful.
Well, we're going to just jump on in. So Donnie's asking, have you ever tried adding dyes to the clay?
I had a dream about 2 nights ago that I did an iron. I mixed the clay paste with hot iron water, but I haven't actually tried it. So I definitely do want to try that.
There's a technique, Kristin, that I learned. I think it's called basen. It's a Japanese technique where they use the rice paste, and you add the dyes to it, and then you do the design on the fabric. So it might work similarly. Be interesting.
All right. So Deb's asking, does your clay wet out and stick to itself when you dip? I have to be so careful with my paste resist to keep it from sticking when wet. At 5 minutes in the vat, does your clay soften and stick?
It definitely does. Yeah. So you want to just be careful not to have it kind of fold over on itself. Yeah, it definitely does soften a little bit, but I think just like strategically dipping helps and making sure it dries out fully before you dip it again.
Let's see, Betsy's asking, how does the gum affect the vat?
I haven't noticed that it affects the vat as much as you might think, because you might think that it would kind of dissolve out and, affect any other future cloths that you want to dye. But I haven't noticed that it affects it at all. I get nice, clean, solid dyes on other pieces that I'm dyeing with too. That's a good question.
Kathy, were you going to add something there?
No, but I think, there's so little gum that you're actually using that possibly it could modify pH slightly, but I don't know. I've never noticed anything either.
Okay. So how much water do you need to mix with the solution?
Oh, that's a good question. So with 10 grams of magnesium sulfate, you're going to use 100 grams of water.
You answer these questions really quick, Kristin. I'm going to start saying them slower. Kristin? What fabric do you use? Cotton or linen, says Mary, asks Mary.
I like to dye with cotton. I've done this with silk, but it takes to cotton really nicely.
Okay, painting with indigo. Love to know more. So
So
tell us more.
there's a bunch of different ways you can paint with indigo directly, and all the recipes are in Catherine and Joy's book, The Art and Science of Natural Dyes, which I believe is on back order at Botanical Colors, and you can pre-order. Um, there's a few different ways. You can mix the pigment directly with fresh soy milk and hydrate it. You know, you might have mixed an indigo vat and doing this because you shake it with the marbles in a little glass jar, and then apply that directly to soy treated cloth. Let's see what else. There's another way where you can sugar your fiber with fructose water and then let that dry, and then you make this crazy, very caustic indigo print paste with lye and indigo pigment, and apply that to that sugared fiber, and then steam the pigment into the fiber and then neutralize it. And it's a huge process, but you can do some cool stuff with that. Those are two of the ways. Kathy, do you have any other direct indigo application?
Yeah, there's a couple more. So if you take the flour off of your indigo vat, you can mix that with any medium, gum arabic, soy milk, casein, gouache, anything, and then use that as a pigment. And typically that's on either a soy milk treated and or a mordanted, then soy milk treated fiber. The other one that I've done, which is like super chemically, but was really effective, is if you're using like a thiox vat, you make like this tiny little mini vat that's super over reduced, like fluorescent yellow, and then you will quickly paint that on a surface. And that little moment of it coming off the brush and going onto the fiber and then immediately oxidizing, it'll still adhere. I saw that in Africa. That's what they were doing when they wanted to paint with indigo.
Cool.
It's just make this tiny little really disgusting vat and then put it on there. You might try it with fructose or something, it might work, but we were using thiox.
Okay, what is with the lime after dyeing? Do you also wash it out and put it onto the plants in the garden?
Yeah, well, when I rinsed out those pieces in that video I showed you all, it's all together rinsing. So it's also a great way to rinse indigo dyed fabric or like any naturally dyed cloth, straight into the garden. Yeah.
Yeah, Jasmine Cindy says, thank you, Kristin. You're such a star. 3X.
Oh, Jasmine.
Terry, so have you worked on paper? I wonder if it will work with black walnut dye. Why only indigo?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I haven't done it myself on paper, but somebody else in a workshop, I can't remember which one, that I took at Penland did it on paper and it worked for them, the Clayface Resist with indigo. And I mentioned this a little bit before, but if you were going to dye it in a black walnut dye or any other dye bath, it would probably just break down. It would be like the equivalent of, but maybe even more so, break it down, of just like washing your clay paste fabric in water. And because the walnut dye and most natural dyes are acidic, so it only really works in an alkaline environment.
What about, Kristin, a surface treatment? Like if you were to do your clay paste on a piece of fabric, let it dry, and then mix up a dye solution and paint it on, and then just let it cure. Would that work?
I think that could probably work.
Yeah, that could be really interesting.
Yeah, we should try that.
We should try that.
All right, just make sure when you do try that, tag us, and then we'll share it out with everybody.
No, we got to make a movie.
What? Botanical Colors, the movie? Clay paste edition. So you have a favorite type of brush to apply the paste, and how quickly do you need to finish applying the paste before it starts drying?
I don't have a favorite brush. I use really just like cheap house painting brushes. And I think the bigger the better if you're trying to get a lot of clay down onto your piece of fabric, especially with a big piece, because it really cuts down the time if you have like, just a big house painting brush that's pretty thick and absorbent. What was the second question? I forgot.
How quickly do you need to finish applying the paste before it starts drying?
Yeah. So it can dry while you're applying it. I haven't noticed that makes a difference. And yeah, so you can just kind of like take it leisurely. You don't have to be in any rush as you're applying it.
Like the videos you make where it's ludicrous speed
Yeah, because it's like
with
10
Flight of the Bumblebee in the background.
Yeah.
Can we make paste in advance and store it for using in the future?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah. So when you store your clay paste, I just store it in a Tupperware container. So you want to have a sealable container. Old yogurt containers are also great, and a glass jar could also work. And it lasts for about 3 days before it starts to smell, but it still works after it smells. I've done this experiment myself. And you want to ideally keep it in a fridge, I would say. So sealed in a fridge. I've also frozen Clayface Resist, and 6 months later just defrosted it and used it all the same. So it's great for storage.
See, Michael's asking, will this work in a traditional fermentation vat?
I don't know very much about fermentation vats, actually. I've never tried to work with them. Kathy, do you have any knowledge about that?
I'm thinking here. It should work just fine. I would say the pH of a fermentation vat tends to be a little bit lower than a fructose or, even a chemical vat. So it might dissolve the paste slightly faster, but if you're really doing a 5-minute max dip, you should still be okay. I mean, one of the things to do is just give it a try. Do that little strip experiment and see what happens.
Don't be afraid. Curious what other plants you are growing in your garden for dyes. What grows well here in Oakland, says Elaine Cosa Arts. Yeah.
We're like pretty spoiled in Oakland because we have a really mild climate. So a lot of things grow really, really well here. We have Coreopsis flowers, always seeds I got at Botanical Colors, actually. Coreopsis. Let's see what else to look in my beds.
Marigold.
Yeah, marigold.
Madder.
Let's see.
Cosmos.
Yeah, we have cosmos.
Sunflowers.
Yeah, the black magic button.
Oh yeah, bachelor's button.
Yeah, bachelor's button.
Calendula.
Yeah, calendula. That's in with the indigo.
Pretty much all of them, right?
Yeah.
I'd say the only thing that you would probably need to cover or help along is tropical indigo, like Fructicosa or have you grown Tinctoria at all? Indigofera tinctoria?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, maybe Tinctoria needs a little bit of a head start, but everything else should grow pretty nicely because you're zone 9, right?
I'm not sure what zone you are.
Yeah, I know you are. You're the Bay Area. You're zone 9.
Zone 9.
I'm gonna grow.
Yes. That's okay. If the clay mixture dries, can you just add a bit of water?
Oh yeah. I would just add a little bit of warm water. It doesn't really dry out. Like I've left it out. You only really want to leave it at room temperature for, I would say, max 3 days. So then if it's sealed and in the fridge, it probably won't dry out, or sealed or frozen. So yeah, but you could just add a little bit of warm water to it if it does totally dry out.
What's the difference between a clay resist and a rice paste resist?
Yeah, that's a good question. So rice paste is made with, I think, glutinous rice flour. I've really only worked with it maybe twice. And in Japan, it's called karazome. And what I know from rice paste, I did it in a workshop, so I've never mixed the balls myself, but you basically make glutinous rice flour like little patties and then steam them. And then you can screen print with it and paint with it and stencil with it. And it actually holds up really, really nicely in the Indigo vat. So I think you can, pros and cons to all of these different resist methods, but you can get a really nice strong contrast with rice paste resist. The reason why I don't work with rice paste is because it's a little bit harder to wash out. And that's the same for like soy lime paste resist and batik too. Like I like clay paste because it's really, really soluble in water and it just like melts away super easily. And I don't really have the patience to wash out the other, maybe stronger resists.
Okay, I'm gonna just jump in this one. Okay, so which type of clay do you use? And if you have any tips on making stencils and block prints, this Margarita will be happy to have your answers.
Okay, cool. I use a mix of bentonite and kaolin clay, and they're both like traditionally, I think, available at beauty supply stores. And I know ceramicists that work with kaolin clay too. And I do a 50-50 mix because that's what I learned when I first started mixing the Clayface Resist. But I think you can also just use them standalone on their own. Michelle Garcia works with, maybe you can help me remember the name. It starts with a G. It's a Moroccan clay.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't remember it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different types that you can work with, but bentonite and kaolin are just really,
Yeah, and they're really easily available. Soap supply stores have them, or online shops have them. Ceramic supply has both of those. You know, and they're not very expensive.
The second part of that question too was about any tips on making stencils or block prints.
Mhm. Yeah, I've carved rubber blocks. I think you can buy just like squares of rubber blocks at any craft supply store. I like really soft rubber to carve into because it's just easier. You can kind of trace your shape out on that block. And then in terms of stencils, I mostly just work with like craft paper because my shapes are super straightforward, or just like old paper bags. That's mostly what I use. But if you want to work with something that's stronger, or if you don't want to like cut the shape over and over again, if it's more complicated, because the paper ones are temporary because they'll get wet, you could work with like mylar or some sort of something that'll hold up a little bit better with water.
I think the amount of paper bags we all have right now of not being able to take our shopping bags into stores, we probably could use a lot of paper bags up for that. Have you ever tried applying to felt or Nuno felt?
I haven't.
Nuno.
I haven't, no.
Okay. Alex Arzt, what's your favorite plant to dye with and why, other than indigo?
I know her.
I bet.
Let's see. I love weld. I kind of started falling in love with weld like 2 years ago. And I believe your dress is dyed in weld. Is that correct, Amy?
The color's weld.
It's a beautiful yellow. It's super, super light fast. It doesn't fade in the sun. And when you over dye it with a little bit of iron, it's this like beautiful, warm olive green. So I do love my weld.
Yeah. So does your indigo kit, is your indigo vat kit simple to use? Also, how long does it last? Thanks. Great presentation.
Thanks. That's a good question. Yeah, my indigo kit is available at Botanical Colors too, so we'll share the link to that. Yeah. And it's super easy to use. It's a method that Catherine Ellis showed me and Michelle Garcia showed to her. And basically you mix all the ingredients into one vessel and shake it as much as you can. So you kind of the indigo pigment is totally saturated by its lime and fructose powder in there. So it's a fructose vat. And that, in a sense, hydrates the indigo. So basically, you just add this mixture directly to hot water. And yeah, it's a great method. It lasts as long as you would like it to last. And that's a good question, but it's a hard question to answer. Some people see their indigo vats as like, I'm birthing this thing and I'm gonna let it run its course once I've kind of used up all of the indigo pigment that's in that vat. And others see it as something that you can keep alive and kind of troubleshoot. And if you have a smaller vat, that's not as big of a deal. But if you have like a 50-gallon vat or something that would be a lot harder to dump and start over, then it's helpful to kind of get familiar with what your vat needs and ways to troubleshoot it so you can keep it alive for a while.
Yeah, we have definitely lots of information on that too on our site, on our how-to page.
Can I just say something quickly? Kristin, we did an experiment with a conventional 1, 2, 3 where you mix everything into the vat rather than just combine all ingredients and then put it in the vat, which is the method that you introduced to me. And then we did these side-by-side tests of what the dyed fabrics look like. They're pretty much identical. I mean, there's a very slight shading difference, but I don't think to a dyer it's anything to even concern yourself about. It's just so much faster.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have pictures, and we're putting together like just a little information on how to do these different vat techniques. And so there'll be pictures on what they look like after the first day that you make the vat, 3 days later, and how many dips. And we're going to do one more round of, it's been about 3 weeks now, and we haven't used the vat. So we'll do one more round of dips just to have an idea. Oh, this is what it looks like after you've made it. So it's fascinating though to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very excited to see all of those pictures.
We all are.
Yeah.
Helen wants to remind you, you have a eucalyptus. So in your yard, I guess. Are you growing eucalyptus in your yard?
Oh, no, I just run around town and collect it.
Yeah. So, okay. Are there other clay paste recipes with different ingredients that you have tried, or do you find the one you're using right now works best?
I haven't really tried other types of clay. I've just kind of taken this recipe and I guess more troubleshooted like my technique around it. So I have the recipe, and then from there, just doing experiments about like, how long do I want to dye it for? How wet can I get it? How many layers, values, and that kind of thing. So, but I haven't really played with, you all reminded us, Gasoul clay. That's what it's called. I haven't played with different types of clay, no, but I'm sure you could have a lot of fun with it, especially if you have a lot of clay in your soil. That would be a fun little adventure.
That is cool. I didn't think about that. Okay, my indigo plants are flowering now. What do I do?
Exciting. So you probably have so many seeds. What I would do is just grab the flower and kind of roll it between your thumb and forefinger and see what comes out. If it's kind of green, you can let it sit there for a little bit longer. And if it's black, then you can snip the flowers off. I would just like lay them out to dry on a table if you have table space, or hang them up as a wall decoration, and then they should dry out pretty quickly. You can just kind of rub out all the little seeds from the flowers.
Okay. Can you use silk screens to apply or print the clay paste if you have a more intricate design? Or can you make stencils to apply your clay paste instead of using blocks or painting on the fabric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely can. That's another really cool thing about the Clayface. So it'll work with an exposed screen if you have a really intricate design. When I've done the screen printing technique, I usually like to maybe add a second layer of clay. And if that means you have to like hand paint it, and you can also see like what works for your design and that sort of thing. But I like to add a second layer of clay just because all of that pressure makes the layer from the screen print kind of thin.
Does the grit in the clay interfere with the screen?
No, I've never had a problem with that. Yeah.
Reese wants to know, her indigo has been eaten by a mole. Do you know how to eradicate moles from greenhouses in Western Massachusetts?
Winter? I'm not sure.
Of course we do.
Right. Botanical Colors Pest Service, the movie.
We do it all.
I think we are the pests.
We are the pests. Yep. Okay, it looks like we can. Oh, cats. Breeze, cats. Use cats. I think we'll take one more question, then Kathy, you can wrap it up. But how wonderful that we just got to the end of all this and not having to force Kristin to answer tons of questions. Yes, get a cat. Everybody says cats, cats. Do you have any experience? I think this is the one I didn't read. Do you have any experience block printing the clay? Any tips?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do a similar technique. So I'll block print my design down, and then I'll take a smaller paintbrush. I thought I had one nearby, but just a smaller paintbrush and kind of like retrace that block print area. So I have 2 layers of clay because the block print also kind of gives you a really thin layer of clay. So it takes some time. It does work with just 1 layer, but you get a stronger contrast if you kind of do the second layer with the block print.
All right. And so somebody wants to, besides all the cat talk that's now happening, thanks, please. What can you tell us more about the class you're teaching tomorrow online?
Oh yeah. It's a lake pigment making class. And I'll type in the discount code in the chat for you all. It's feedback. That's easy to remember. So it's going to be, you'll get 15% off all the online classes. And basically when you make a lake pigment, you can do it with like an exhausted dye bath. I recently did it with indigo and it actually worked, which I was surprised by. But you can take your exhausted dye bath and then create a pigment from that dye bath. So we'll go over that process.
Kristin, put the link for the class 2 in there.
Oh, okay.
If you can, just. And
I know, and so many, I think a lot of us have taken or been in that class together. So a lot of you have taken classes with me, which has been awesome.
well, thank you so much for your presentation today and for making us all smile. And there's so many haystack people that are also on this.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Barbara and Brees and yeah, I'm not sure if there's a couple other people. I don't know if they're still here. And your Kathy behind you is that beautiful
My
quilt.
quilt.
Kristin, yeah, I kept pointing at it from haystack.
Ta-da.
Yay. It's like slideshow comes to life.
I know. I love this little quilt. I was using it as a lap quilt the other day because it's freezing here. All right. Is it my turn, Amy? Am I going to wrap it up? Kristin, thank you so much. That was really beautiful, amazing, informative, fascinating. I have all sorts of like ideas now in 0 time, but okay. And the kids are coming. Can you hear them singing?
It's usually
Oh
your leaf blower guy, but now it's children. That's good.
Discount code.
Oh yeah, discount code. Yeah, the kids come and take a sewing class here at the complex. It's really great. Okay, so just a few reminders. We posted a new class for Porfirio Gutierrez. It's going to be using wool fabric instead of yarn. So if you're interested, please join. And it's cochineal dye, and he does the traditional Zapotec methods for getting the color. And we'll be using 2 colors, a yellow and then a red. And depending, I'm hoping to get this shipment of a yellow dye that is indigenous to Porfirio's area, but I don't have an ETA yet. But if we do get it, then we'll use it. If we don't get it, then we'll be using a North American dye plant. Also, we are I'm cleaning out our storage bin, the storage rooms that we have, and I'm finding stuff from 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and we're just putting it on the site to kind of move it. So if you're interested, I've got some Christmas ornaments, I have some scarf blanks, I have a lot of this isn't there yet, but it will be, I swear. Yarns. I have I have stuff from everywhere, little mortars and pestles. I mean, so we're just going to keep putting it on every week. We'll put a few more things on and you guys can have a look and see if that's interesting to you. And then we have tons of books that are coming. And next week, we have a celebrated author and maker, Melanie Folic. So Melanie is an independent writer, editor, and creative consultant. Many of you may know her from her book, and she used to be the editor of Interweave Knits. So if you guys were knitters and used to subscribe to that magazine, she has a new book called Making a Life, Working by Hand, and Discovering the Life You Are Meant to Live. So I am voraciously reading that, trying to figure it out. Like, okay, give me the sign, Melanie. And we are carrying that on the site. So we have that so that you can make your own discoveries too. And she's also Natalie Channon's publisher for all of the Alabama Channon sewing books and really interesting how-tos, patterns, and stitch books. So, and here I'm reading she has over 425,000 books in print. That's
There's
amazing.
more to learn about her too. I just put the RSVP up so you can see other books.
Yeah, she's going to be incredible. I checked out a YouTube presentation that she did and it was really amazing. So yeah, please join us next week with Melanie. And with that, I think, anything else, Amy?
Yeah, so there's a question about when are you going to have that how to make green class, Kathy?
Oh my God. I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying to get it together. But what I thought I could do in the meantime, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get it done before Christmas, is I thought of having a one-day class on technical indigo, vat questions, looking at vats, looking at this comparative study we did, that kind of a thing. So those of you who always have these burning indigo questions, we could get those all handled in one class. And then we will try to do the green class early next year. I also have Allison Kaplan from Katagolda, who's agreed to do a making class on making these incredible little pouches that I use every day to keep my cell phone in. And we have a amazing dyer who's also agreed to do a turkey red class. So for those of you who aren't familiar with turkey red, it used to be a 22-day process and tons of steps and all sorts of interesting things. And she's gotten it to a point where we can do it over a 5-day period. So we're really looking forward to that. It is the most brilliant red on cotton that you've ever seen. It's just glows. It's so pretty using madder. So very excited about that class. And Sasha Durr is coming soon. So we do have some really great teachers coming, and Kristin said she would teach for us too. So we're super excited. Stuff is coming. That's it. So green is coming, but just a little slowly.
And other exciting things are coming too. We can't talk about, but it definitely involves Eileen Fisher, and it definitely involves access to things on our site with Eileen Fisher.
Yay! All right, guys. Anything else?
No.
We're going to unmute. Say goodbye. Take it off a speaker. Let's see, put it on whatever you call that.
Yeah, I don't even know. There's everybody.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, nice
Good job,
backdrop.
Thank you.
Jessie.
Hey, Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Good to see you all.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Christine.
Hi. Bye, Kathy.
Hi, Erica. Hi, Elaine. Oh, Suzanne, there you are. I didn't see the moves today.
Oh, they were there?
Okay, good. I'll watch it on the video. Thanks, guys. Oh, from Oaxaca, we have
It was
international
Betsy or Deb was asking.
Natalia. Thank you.
Somebody was asking about size of fabric for Porfirio's class too.
We're gonna have 2 panels,
Okay.
so maybe like 2 large, I don't know. This size, 2 of them, one
Right.
for
Mhm.
one for the yellow and then the other one for red.
Hi, Barbara Putnam.
Hey, none of us want to leave. That's the whole thing.
Oh,
Hi,
I
you are
know.
fabulous. I
That's-
can't believe I sat near you at Haystack, and now I know a lot more stuff. And you were the queen of pigments.
I know.
I know.
I like that picture where everybody's like working and I'm just like staring because I'm always the loafer on the side, just taking pictures.
Yeah, that was right. The loafer.
You guys-
Hardly the loafer. Hardly.
Hardly.
uh,
All
Anyway,
right,
thank you again, both of you. This is so wonderful. The best.
great.
we
Bye,
did
kids.
get
Oh,
some
nice,
feedback.
Brees. What's that?
So
What?
when everybody put their scraps from Haystack in the trash,
Oh,
Ah,
picked them out, and it's a piece that I'm stitching for a show
Oh
with
my
India
goodness.
Flint next year. But yes,
cool.
all those little dye bits from Haystack.
Dye bits.
Yeah.
Very nice. Look how pretty.
Applique?
So thank you, all those dyers.
cool.
Happy to help.
Good feedback on Feedback Friday happening.
Yeah.
All right. Amy, I'm
All
going to
right.
stop the recording.
Oh yeah, okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Kristen.